Have you ever felt truly haunted by the past? Not just a fleeting memory, but a persistent ghost that walks beside you, whispering of what was, what could have been. Are you trapped by the image of a lost love, a former version of yourself, or a moment in time you can never reclaim? If so, you already know the story of Orpheus, not as a myth, but as a mirror to the soul. The tale is ancient, yet it beats with a modern heart. Orpheus was a figure of pure artistry, a divine musician whose voice could charm the very fabric of nature. Rocks would soften, trees would bend to listen, and wild beasts would grow tame at the sound of his lyre. His life was a symphony, and its most beautiful melody was his love for Eurydice, a nymph who was the embodiment of natural grace. Their love was a perfect harmony, a union of art and untamed beauty. On their wedding day, the world seemed to hold its breath, celebrating their joy. But in the midst of this perfection, tragedy struck with the cold, silent speed of a viper's bite. Eurydice was gone, her spirit stolen away to the underworld. The music died. Orpheus's world, once vibrant with color and sound, became a silent, monochrome landscape of grief. In this crushing silence, he made a choice no mortal had ever dared. He would not accept this loss. He would descend into the land of the dead to bring her back. Armed only with his lyre and a sorrow so profound it became its own power, he began his journey into darkness. His music, now a lament, was so heartbreakingly beautiful that it moved even the stoic rulers of the underworld, Hades and Persephone. They were so touched by his grief that they granted him a wish. He could lead Eurydice back to the world of the living. The condition was simple, yet psychologically torturous. He must walk ahead of her and not look back until they were both fully in the sunlight. Orpheus agreed, his heart soaring with a desperate hope. He began the long, dark ascent, with the faint sound of Eurydice's footsteps echoing behind him. It was the sound of his future returning. But as he neared the surface, the boundary between shadow and light, the footsteps faded. Silence. A heavy, terrifying silence filled the air. Doubt, a poison to the hopeful heart, began to creep in. Is she still there? Was this a cruel trick by the gods? Overwhelmed by an anxiety that screamed for confirmation, a desperate need for certainty, he reached the threshold of light and did the one thing he was forbidden to do. He turned around. He saw her for a fleeting, heart-stopping moment. A faint, ethereal figure, her hand outstretched, her form already dissolving like a dream at dawn. She was a shadow being pulled back into the eternal darkness, forever. He lost her a second time, and this time, the loss was absolute, sealed by his own hand. This myth is far more than a tragic love story. It's a profound, detailed map of the human psyche. The underworld isn't a physical place. It's a metaphor for our own inner depths, the vast, often unexplored territory of our unconscious. When we experience profound loss, deep grief, or trauma, we undertake our own descent. It is an unavoidable inner journey into the darkest parts of ourselves, a psychological passage we must navigate to process our pain. Orpheus' descent is our own when we are forced to confront the parts of ourselves that have been buried by sorrow. And who is Eurydice in this inner landscape? On the surface, she is the lost beloved, the person we can no longer touch or hold. But her symbolism runs much deeper. Eurydice can be a past version of ourselves that we miss, the carefree youth, the ambitious professional, the person we were before the world left its scars. She can represent an idealized past, a golden age in our lives that we polished in our memory until it gleams with an impossible perfection. When Orpheus tries to rescue Eurydice, he is trying to rescue a part of his life that has already died, to reverse the irreversible flow of time. The condition, do not look back, is the central psychological challenge of the myth, and perhaps of life itself. It represents the monumental difficulty of trusting a process you cannot see, of having faith in the future while your back is turned to the past. Anxiety, by its very nature, is a creature that starves without certainty. It demands confirmation. It whispers, "Are you sure? What if you're wrong? You need to check." Orpheus's journey out of the underworld is a battle against this primal, internal impulse. His fear of losing Eurydice again is precisely what makes him lose her. He cannot tolerate the uncertainty, the silence behind him. This speaks directly to our own attachments to the past. How many of us are still mentally replaying conversations from a relationship that ended years ago, searching for a different outcome? How many are still trying to recapture the feeling of a job we once loved or an identity that no longer fits? This is the seductive trap of nostalgia. We idealize what's gone, turning it into a perfect, untouchable memory. By doing so, we prevent ourselves from moving forward. Like Orpheus, we are walking towards the light, but our focus, our entire being, remains fixed on the shadows behind us. Doubt, in this context, becomes a powerful form of self-sabotage. Orpheus had already achieved the impossible. He had charmed the gods of the dead. The hardest part was supposedly over. All he had to do was walk in trust. But his insecurity, his overwhelming need to control an uncontrollable situation, ruined everything. He needed an absolute guarantee, something life, in its infinite and often painful wisdom, rarely offers. This is a powerful lesson. Sometimes, our own desperate need for certainty is the very thing that destroys the potential for a positive outcome. We become our own worst enemy. Anxiety thrives in the absence of proof. The silence that Orpheus hears is a trigger. For him, silence doesn't mean trust the process. It means she's gone. His mind, in a desperate attempt to protect him, immediately creates the most catastrophic scenario. He can't bear walking forward without the comforting sound of her footsteps. How often do we do this in our own lives? We interpret a lack of response as rejection, silence as abandonment. We fill the void with our deepest fears instead of with faith. The myth of Orpheus is also the archetype of the failing hero. We are accustomed to stories where the hero triumphs against all odds. But Orpheus fails, and his failure is profoundly, achingly human. It doesn't stem from a lack of strength or courage, but from a deep psychological fragility. His mistake reveals the universal human struggle with doubt, anxiety, and the inability to let go. His story reminds us that failure is a fundamental part of our experience, and it often teaches us more than success ever could. The pain of looking back is the core tragedy. In that single moment of turning, Orpheus doesn't just lose Eurydice. He actively participates in his own loss. He solidifies it. By clinging to the past, he forfeits his future with her. This is a powerful metaphor for how we can get stuck in cycles of suffering. Every time we mentally look back at a painful loss, we feel the sting of it all over again. We don't just remember the pain, we relive it, keeping the wound fresh and preventing it from ever truly healing. So what is the way out of this cycle? The myth suggests it lies in integrating the loss. It's about the courageous act of accepting that something or someone has truly died and cannot be brought back. This is not about forgetting. It's about transforming the searing pain of loss into the quiet strength of wisdom and maturity. There's a crucial difference between remembering a past love with warmth and being trapped by the ghost of that relationship. Orpheus's true journey wasn't about saving Eurydice. It was about learning to live with her loss. His ultimate failure teaches us the path he should have taken. This ancient story resonates with a startling clarity in our modern lives. Think about the ex you still check up on through the cold glow of a screen, hoping for a sign that they miss you. Think about the career path you abandoned, which you still fantasize about in moments of dissatisfaction. Or the old you that you see in photos, a person you feel you've lost and are desperately trying to find again. Social media constantly tempts us to look back, curating our pasts and to highlight reels that our present selves can never live up to. Each of these is a Eurydice we are trying to pull from the underworld. So I want to leave you with a few questions to carry with you. What are you still trying to recover from your own personal underworld? In what area of your life are you constantly looking back, afraid to trust the silence and move forward? And most importantly, what new, beautiful things could be born in your life if you finally allowed yourself to step fully into the sunlight without turning around? Ultimately, the myth of Orpheus is not just a story of failure. It's a story of profound learning. It teaches us that some losses are final, and the attempt to reverse them only leads to more pain. The real heroic act isn't rescuing the past. It's learning to walk through the darkness of our own grief and emerge into the light, alone, perhaps, but whole and ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into myth and meaning. See you next time.